Hey guys, I'm Zoe from the Learning Community Project, and today I'll be reviewing the AP World History summer homework as well as giving you an intro to the class for the 2020 school year. Okay, so let's get started. So if you go to my school, or you might have the same summer homework, this year you guys were required to read the language and culture sections for chapters 3, 4, and 5, and then also read chapter 7. So let's get started with 3 and 4 and 5. So for those, you'll be learning about ancient Indian, Chinese, and Roman Greek cultures, and you'll be reading those sections. So the main thing you want to get from reading those sections is they talk a lot about religion. So for example, for Chinese culture, you talk a lot about Taoism, legalism, and Confucianism. You want to get those down. And then for Indian culture, you learn a lot about Hinduism and Buddhism, and you want to make sure you understand those and how they relate to the civilization as a whole, as well as the society. And then same as Roman and Greek, you want to learn about their history and how they don't not only apply to our society today, but also how their culture and religion apply to them. So I feel like as long as you read those chapters, you'll at least get an understanding. And then what I suggest doing is doing vocab for this chapter so you know what each thing means, and watch a crash course video or do some kind of review. Use your AP World review book. That help me so much throughout the class. So I really suggest doing that. A lot of people have done notes in the past, but I really stress that you shouldn't overkill on notes because sometimes it wastes a lot of time without you really learning to understand what you're actually learning. So I think it's a better idea just to think about in your brain, okay, like how does this apply to society, and just try to remember as much as you can that you've read. Okay, so moving on to chapter 7. Chapter 7 introduces you to Arabic societies and Islam, and so it talks about Muhammad and that religion, so you want to understand the aspects of that religion and how they relate to the society, as well as how they relate to the society today. And I think it's really important to try to see how the aspects of their society carry on as well as affect other cultures. For example, Muslims were very big traders, nomads, and travelers, which means they connected a lot of different societies. So as they did that more and more, they were able to spread ideas throughout the region they lived in and wider regions that they traveled to. So you really want to get an understanding of that. Also, I suggest doing vocab for that section too, watching a crash course video, or reviewing in some way. You're not going to have a lot of time throughout the year because you're going to have to read about a chapter a week or 2 chapters a week. You're not going to have a lot of time to do a lot of review or notes. You're going to have other classes. So what I really suggest is just thinking about it and like doing a Quizlet, doing something small that reviews the information, and most importantly, reading the book. Reading was the most useful tool for me because it gave you everything you really needed to know for your quizzes or your essays coming up. Okay, so now I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the class and how I experienced it in the essays, and then finally AP tests. Okay, so for every week, like I said earlier, we have a quiz on a chapter or 2 chapters. And then so I'd read the chapter, I'd review a class before at lunch, the morning before, just to get a fresh idea in my head. And I'd probably read the chapter the night before or the day or 2 before, when I had time. So then you'll get your quiz. It's usually a 10-question quiz for us, and then passing was like a 6, and then you want to get a score as high as possible because that will really boost your grade up when it comes to the bigger tests that may be harder. Okay, so then for the bigger tests, I reviewed all the chapters, reviewed the AP review book, reviewed my vocab and things like that, reviewed on Quizlet. And then also a good resource that your teacher will give you is the AP Classroom on College Board that you can use. And that helps too because sometimes your teacher will put up like questions on there you can study. And then lastly, since it will be distance learning, the PowerPoints that your teacher gives you or your notes you have in class, that also helps a lot for those bigger tests. I highly advise you really study that, but you know, just do as much as you have time for. Don't stress yourself out. Just try to learn as much information as you can, and I promise you, you'll be okay. You don't have to overkill it. Okay, so then lastly, essays, and then your AP test. Okay, so for the essays, you'll probably have one every month or 2 a month. In the beginning, you'll have less, and then you'll progress to having more the closer you get to the end of the year. The essays are in a DBQ format, or you might have a change in continuity or a compare and contrast essay. I'll explain all of those. So first of all, compare and contrast essay will compare and contrast two subjects we're talking about in history. So for example, you might be comparing and contrasting Chinese ancient civilization and ancient Indian South Asian civilizations, maybe about their culture or something specific, and you'll give evidence with that, with documents or things from your book, and your teacher will explain that. And then change in continuity, you'll analyze changes or things that have continued over time, make a claim about them based on documents, based on information, and your teacher will probably outline that, so don't worry too much about where you'll get the evidence. They will explain. And then lastly, the DBQ. So the DBQ will be the essay that you do have on your AP test. So you'll probably do a lot of DBQs during the year if you go to the school I go to, or hopefully your teacher will do them a lot too. And you're gonna get about 8 documents, and you're gonna pick 6 that will be your evidence. You're gonna make a claim and then add other things like outside evidence, talk about things that relate to it in history, and then other things like that. And then for your AP test, you'll have a lot of multiple choice questions. You'll have short answer questions that will ask you simple questions about history. You just have to write like 3-4 sentences to answer those, and then you'll have a DBQ essay. And then the last thing I'd suggest is just study your hardest, do your best, and I promise you will be fine. As a person that went through the class, I say just don't stress as much and do the best you can. So you guys are gonna do great. Good luck.